Hello and welcome back to the Chicken for Breakfast podcast.
Where we have all the answers to one very simple question.
What's cooking?
That's right. We have another very, very special episode coming your way today. We have none other than...
My name is Cierra Malone. I am an educator and assistant principal, an author, and an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. So, let's get right into it. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, let's start with the reason we're all here today.
Well, we're all here today because I am a new author. I just published my first book on March 19th.
Hey.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. So this book's pretty much, talks about, goals that I've set, realistic, attainable goals that I've set throughout my life, having gratitude, breaking through, trials, tribulations, and boundaries and things of that nature.
Why a book? What is it about a book that you felt like this is, what I had to do?
I felt like I wanted to share my story, right? I felt like I wanted to reach a broader audience. I feel like, with being an educator, I'm always educating and inspiring and leading. But I wanted to lead on a broader scale. And so I figured if I told my story, right, I can inspire and help lead other, students, other educators, other entrepreneurs, and, things like that. So I just wanted to kind of, put my story out there just so that people can see and understand, hey, whatever you want to do in life, you can do it. No matter what circumstances you come from, as long as you set, realistic, attainable goals and you put forth the effort, you can do and be anything that you want to be in life.
That's good. That's powerful.
That's very good.
So on this podcast, we like to talk about community. And, we've had other people on before where they talk about education specifically. What's your role in education?
I'm currently an assistant principal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a former intervention specialist.
And so let me just get your opinion on the importance of education and the power that it holds in a community.
Sure. So the importance of education, when you receive your diploma, when you graduate from high school, college, whatever it may be, that's something that no one can take away from you, right? And so you always have a for sure avenue. You have a career that, if you wanted to venture off and become an entrepreneur, let's just say that didn't work out or pan out for you, you always have something to fall back on. You worked hard for it, you went to school for it, now you have this certificate that will continue to, help provide for you in life.
No, that's great.
Yeah. We talk a lot about education on here. We talk a lot about goal setting and all of that. Let's bring those together. So you've written a book. Do you have any plans to write another, or what is kind of next? What is that next goal you've kind of set for yourself beyond the book?
Beyond the book, I aspire to become a motivational speaker and a mentor for the youth, and for maybe even peers of my own. So,
all right. So you wrote a book. It's called Life's Blueprint. Tell us about this book.
This book is an inspiring, motivational book for, individuals that may have experienced things that I have once experienced growing up. Growing up in the inner city of Cleveland, being less fortunate growing up, attending, Cleveland city schools to where, we may not have resources that, other suburban or rural area schools have and things of that nature. So, just have to really use what you have to kind of make it and push forward.
Absolutely. So those experiences combined with, this aptitude to write a book, kind of what led you to write this book?
Well, I wanted to put my story out there. I wanted to motivate and inspire as many people as possible, right? And so knowing that, I went through, a lot, just kind of growing up and in school and things like that, I wanted, other inner city students to understand or to know that no matter what you go through, no matter where you come from, as long as you set realistic, attainable goals and you push forward, you stay steadfast, you can become or do anything in life that you want to do.
Absolutely.
When you were writing the book, do you feel like it came kind of all pretty easily, or was it kind of difficult to get those thoughts and feelings down onto a page?
Well, honestly, it was the publishing company that I worked with. There were a plethora of interviews and, Zoom calls, telephone calls,
Yeah.
questions and things like that. So they, pretty much prompted the questions, and it allowed me to, kind of reminisce and kind of, reflect back on like how my life was and what actually transpired in my life. And so, at some points it was like, wow, I really went through that, or wow,
Yeah.
I really overcame that obstacle. So, it was very gratifying writing it. I work with a fantastic team, and so, and here we have this final piece.
No, that's great. I think because what we do here is we do production stuff, so like
Okay.
digital media, films, things like that, and all too often, I think almost every single episode, we talk about the importance of team, and so it's also important that when we talk about books and movies and everything else, to understand the back end of that is really cool as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so having gone through that whole writing process, interview process, working with the team, getting the book together, would you recommend it? I mean, it kind of sounded like you were talking, there was in some way a little bit of reminiscing, maybe even a little bit of healing, of being able to look back on your life. Would you recommend that writing a book might be a good way to do that for other people?
Absolutely. And with this book, personally, it has personal experiences that I've experienced, right? And it also have tips and things in that nature at the end of each chapter. So it'll, give you a scenario. It'll give you tips on how to handle it. It'll ask, prompt questions on what would you do in this situation. And so it's a guiding tool as well. So that's why
Yeah.
the beginning title is Life's Blueprint.
So we were talking about education. You are currently an assistant principal. What led you into that position? What kind of pushed you forward to think that that is, something that you could take on and you would be a good fit for?
I've always been one that, was a nurturer and, cared deeply about people and, their success and things like that, right? And so when I was in middle school, I was inspired by two of my middle school teachers. They were young, educated, and came from the same, background that I came from. And so to see them, in the position that they were in, it helped me believe and it inspired me. Like, hey, they come from exactly where you came from. You can be as successful as them if you want to. And so, as time went on, my mom, she was an educator. She was a teacher's assistant, and she also worked in food prep. And so, seeing my mom in the education field as well, also it inspired me. And so, I wanted to become someone that can, just help influence and inspire other people.
Absolutely. I think, and I don't think it's noticed enough, right? Is I can also think back to like two or three teachers when I was coming up,
Yeah.
that like they've all impacted me in a way, and whether they know it or not, those are influences. So I think that speaks on the power and the importance of being a teacher, being an educator, even just being a leader or a parent, right? So these influences are so crucial when you're growing up. So I think it's important that we recognize that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You never know what a child is going through. So it is very imperative for you to, always, give a kid grace. If they come to school, they're upset, they're angry, and they're kind of lashing out, just kind of take a second, see how they're doing, why they're feeling, how they're feeling, and just have some grace and sympathy for them.
As an educator, do you often, along those same lines, notice what kids you're impacting, or do you go out of your way to impact certain students?
I definitely go out of my way to impact as many students as I can.
Nice.
I may not always know who or how many students I'm impacting because, you're always on stage. They're always watching. Anything that you say, the things that you do, how you support them, how you love on them, how you give them grace. You never know who's really taking it, and they're never, ever going to forget it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
that's why it's definitely important to be one that want to be in the field of education, because it's not easy. And you have so many kids. I mean, I don't have any kids of my own, but I have, 350 kids. Yeah.
How long have you been an educator?
I have been an educator since 2009.
Okay.
Since I graduated from Notre Dame College.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like as an assistant principal? Because I think we were all students at one point, a lot of our day-to-day as a student is with teachers. And it's not always with the principal or the assistant principal or a lot of the other staff that actually help make the school run. So what does that day-to-day look like for you?
Day to day, so there's no day is the same. Okay, let me just be clear with that. You never know what's going to transpire throughout the day, right? But an ideal day would be, greeting students, being in the breakfast room, in the cafeteria, and then school starts at 8:35, and so at that juncture is when we start classroom observations, and so making sure that we're in the classroom, observing and giving feedback to teachers and things of that nature. Making sure that we're in the hallway during transitions, because that's the time that you're building that rapport and things like that with the students, right? You get to see them, speak to them, have a quick small conversation, quick joke or something like that. And then, of course, working at a high school, sports is a huge thing. So, after the school day, you have sports, so you have to attend the games and things of that nature. So my days are very long.
I believe it.
But, I enjoy what I do. I actually love it. We're very successful at sports as well. And so, that makes it a little more exciting, to actually, be there cheering for the teams and things of that nature, being in that atmosphere.
I've always wondered what it would be like to be a teacher. And we kind of are teachers, but definitely not to like that kind of extent. I've always wondered what it would be like to have a different day every day. Like that feels like a blessing and a curse.
I would say it's a blessing, right?
Nice.
It's a blessing because I'm doing God's work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm actually a teacher right now.
That's exciting.
Yes, I teach. I teach media. So I teach video classes at Ohio Media School.
Okay.
And I haven't been teaching for long. It's been about 3-4 years, somewhere in there. And in that time, I've sort of realized the impact you can have on other people's lives. It's really an incredible thing. Do you think, is there an issue or a problem or something kind of in the youth that you see a lot of students bring into school that you try to tackle with them? I
would say technology. The cell phones is a huge thing.
Yeah.
The cell phones. Within the state of Ohio now, we have a cell phone policy. And so students are not allowed to have their cell phones during the actual school day.
Yeah.
And so we collect their cell phones when they come in, put them in a yonder pouch. We keep them locked up, and then we give them back at the end of the school day. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think that has really helped with, the students being able to focus and, things like that during instructional hours. And so, I really like the policy, and I think it's been effective.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yes, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked before about like social media and the impact it has on people in general, but especially the youth, and how like distracting and how scary it can be. So I think that's a really cool initiative. But I also think back to like my youth, and that would have been awful. I don't know if I would have been able to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I didn't have a phone growing up at all until I was, almost done with high school.
Yeah, I don't think we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think none of us had a phone.
I didn't have a phone until I
Yeah.
was 16.
Yeah,
So
So it's not something I ever dealt with, but I agree. I see it with my own students.
Yeah.
It's hard because for a lot of students that's kind of your lifeline to the rest of the world while you're in the building. But it's also kind of your greatest asset and one of your greatest downfalls just from a distracting side of things. So I kind of lean more towards we'll take them away and you'll get them back. They're not gone forever, and you'll still linked to the outside world.
Right.
But when you only have an hour to get students caught up and onto the next thing, it can be a real battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Our classes are 48 minutes, so
Yeah.
Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh. All right. So I guess last question for education. You're an assistant principal. What's next for you? Is that a role that you see yourself being in? Do you want to be a principal one day? What's kind of the next step for you?
So I aspire to have my own charter school. So that is my next biggest goal that I'm going to try to tackle, right? I have my book done. I'm an assistant principal at a high school now, and now I want to have my own entity.
That's a great goal.
Yeah.
That's dreaming big, and I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. I don't know what goes into it.
That was going to be my question. What does that road look like?
So I attempted it years ago, right? And I was unsuccessful with doing so. I felt like I needed to get some experience under my belt, which is why I became an assistant principal, right? And now that I have that experience under my belt, I think that I'm ready to move and, take things to the next level.
Step into a journey of personal growth, purpose, and achievement with life's blueprint, goals, gratitude, and growing beyond boundaries. In this guide, Cierra U. Malone shares valuable insight drawn from her life's challenges and successes, offering readers practical strategy to develop habits that build success, break free from limitations, and embrace their full potential. Thank you so much, Cierra, for coming on this episode of Chicken for Breakfast. And y'all make sure you go check out her book, Life's Blueprint, Goals, Gratitude, and Growing Beyond Boundaries by Cierra U. Malone on Amazon.com.
So as we wrap up this podcast here, I wanted to come back to the book because I think it's a great book. It's a great title. We kind of touched on it earlier, kind of the reason you wrote the book. But what would you say the message is, and who is this book meant for?
I'm glad that you asked that question. So the coolest thing about this book, right, is that it targets various audiences. It targets young adults, college students, educators, leaders, entrepreneurs, and mentors.
Absolutely. Would you say that this helps, because I know it happened to me, would you say that this helps people who are in this limbo? Because we've noticed like 16 to 20, 22-ish, especially coming out of high school, right? I'm sure you see it a lot where students, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know if they want to go to college. They don't know if they want to not go to college, enter the workforce, what they want to do with life, if they want to travel, if they want to not. Like there's so many influences too. There's so many social media things. There's so many like parents. There's outside, churches. There's so much pressure on people to make the right decisions. And especially, just being in those spaces. Would you say this book helps with that?
Absolutely. This book is a guide and a tool, for someone who, may not know what they want to do, or may not know how to start something that they want to start, may not know how to set realistic, attainable goals and things of that nature, right? So there's a lot of tips and guides and things like that in this book that'll help someone, kind of make a plan, follow through with it, and make sure that they are, doing what they need to do in order to become successful. Because it has, several experiences and, things like that I've experienced throughout my life, with, trials, tribulations, boundaries, and things like that. And so, me dealing with those things personally, I feel as though that, I wanted to share with the world, hey, if you're experiencing this or if you experience the same thing that I did, here are tips and tools to help you kind of, get through that journey.
Yeah, I think people need that. They need that reassurance and that relatability.
Yeah. You said the book is based on a lot of your experiences growing up, your childhood, all of that. Do you see, in your role as an educator, do you see a lot of students having those same experiences, even kind of across generations?
Absolutely. They may be, some students may be experiencing things, worse than I've ever experienced them, right? Yeah. And so, I know that they're able to relate. So I know that this book will help and inspire and influence someone to want to do better and to, to understand and to know that they can do anything that they want to do as long as they put their mind to it and they put forth the effort, right? Because, I want a kid to look at me. I want a kid to say, hey, Miss Malone, she grew up in the same environment I did. Look at where she's at today. How did she do it though? This book is going to explain how I did it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And empower others to follow the same steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And we talk about community a lot. So I think approaches like this are the best way. This kind of thing changes the world because it gives people, it gives them hope. It gives them tools. It gives them, everything they really need to be like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. Sometimes that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of people go through trials and tribulations, and they think that they are either the first to do it, or they have to do it all on their own. I know for me, growing up, that was a lot of what was in me. Was like, I need to, if I can't do it on my own, that means I don't really got it. And it's nice to see stuff like this, to have a book, to have an educator, to have a teacher who kind of flips that on its head. And it's like, you were never meant to do any of this stuff alone. It was always a team game. Mm-hmm. You were always part of a greater whole. And it's powerful stuff. Stuff.
Thank you.
So I guess as we wrap up, tell us where we can look forward to seeing this book and grabbing a copy ourselves.
So you can actually find Life's Blueprint, Goals, Gratitude, and Growing Beyond Boundaries on Amazon. You can also find me on Instagram at Cierra U Malone, as well as on Facebook at Cierra U Malone. Thank you.
Yeah, so absolutely. Make sure you guys go grab a copy of the book. I'm going to probably grab one.
Yeah.
I actually have a goal for this year. We talked about on the first episode of the year about how I have to read 10 books this year because I never read.
This is one.
I have to read it. So I'm going to go check that out.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. So Cierra, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to sit down and talk with not only educators, but a creative. I mean, you wrote a book, you put it all together. We're artists and creatives at heart. So it's nice to, it's nice when those worlds collide.
Yeah.
We want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Johnny, of course, you're always here, me and you, but thanks for being here. And remember, everybody, chicken is a soul food.
And breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
So why not start your day out right with chicken for breakfast? See you next week.